Joe Rogan is trying to fact check this in real time, but it's, again, very difficult to do. They struggle in the next few minutes to figure out even like what to Google to disprove this like clearly ludicrous claim. The Joe Rogan podcast. For reasons that I'll get into, it's hard to categorize his show neatly into one bucket for reliability and bias. Let me get to the point of what our rating is, and then I'll dive into more detail about why. You'll see that it is in the middle of our chart for bias, okay, and it's pretty low for reliability. Okay, reason that it's in general that it's in the middle of the chart for bias is because he has a wide range of guests from left to right to center, and the reason it's low for reliability is not because many or most of his shows have misleading information or inaccurate information. It's just that several really high profile shows lately have had significant misleading information and inaccurate information. Like on our media bias chart, the vertical axis is specifically measures of news value and reliability. Like how much can you rely on the information produced by that particular source to make decisions on what you do in your daily life, in your civic life. Now, what we do is we rate content. We fundamentally do a content analysis methodology, like what people say on the actual show. Some podcasts are just the host talking the whole time, right? So we rate just the content of what the host is saying. Others are a split between the host and one guest, or the host and more than one guest. So if there are guests on the show, then what we're rating is the content of what the guest says, as well as what the host says, and the host's posture towards the guest. We want to make sure that we get a representative sample of one of the shows that we rate. If you take a look at Michael Smerconish's show, it's him, and then he has some guests, and the shows are all in the same general area of the chart. So that overall show score, all those episodes are really similar. If you take a look at another popular podcast on the right, Ben Shapiro, it's usually just him on the show talking his takes and opinions about things that are happening in politics, and he has pretty right-leaning perspective. So his show is hyper-partisan right in the opinion section, but all of them are sort of very similar to each other, right? They're on this analysis and opinion range. If you look at something over on the left, like Pod Save America, another popular podcast, they're sort of in the same range too. They're all on the left. Like some are further left, some are not as far left, and then some of them, the shows are a little bit more biased because of like name calling Republicans and things like that. Joe Rogan's is quite different. Like look at the spread here. Okay, you can see that there's a bunch of shows that are like no bias, like no political bias detectable really at all, and so they have a 0 score for bias, right? Let's take a look at this one. Emily Harrington, who's a U.S. national champion in sport climbing. Okay, no reliability issues. What other highly rated? Nicholas Christakis, who is an author. His book called Apollo's Arrow, right? So as you can see, there's a really big difference because there are some over here that are way out to the left. There are some that are like lean right. Some are like more in the opinion section. Some are, high in the analysis section. And then we have a few over here, which I'll talk about in a second, in this really low reliability zone, which is contains misleading info and contains inaccurate and fabricated info section. One important thing to notice is that as you can tell by where this show is overall, these lower rated shows for reliability are weighted really heavily. Okay, so are extreme bias shows. So we rate extreme bias or heavy bias and low reliability heavily. And why do we do that? We do it for all articles, we do it for all podcasts, we do it for all TV shows. And the reason why is because like the bad information, the most biased information really sticks out in people's minds and their consciousness, especially if it's recent, right? Let's just take a quick look here at these shows that scored super left. What scored super left? Bernie Sanders. That makes sense, right? And how about this one over here? Jimmy Dore, whose own podcast is one of our furthest left rated podcasts, right? So another reason that Joe Rogan is popular is because he has like really world famous guests, and he's really friendly with them, and he's really respectful, and so he tends to get along and have like great conversations with his guests. Also, in the 3 hour show, a lot of times the guests talking is like 80 to 90% of the show. So when the overall content of the show is really influenced by the guests. If they're a politically neutral guest, the show is likely going to be politically in the middle. If the guest leans a little bit right, the show will probably lean a little bit right. Joe Rogan's posture towards most of his guests is friendly and respectful. Right. So I'm going to go through some examples and talk about why, even though the show is about hearing out people's opinions, why that content itself can be rated as containing misleading information or containing inaccurate information. Between these four, Brett Weinstein, this one is the Peter McCullough one, and this is Alex Jones, and this is Dr. Robert Malone. Notice something else about the bias of these shows that are low reliability. They're not really that high bias. Like this one is a bit. Like this one, Malone has the highest bias score to the right, but these ones that are also really low reliability, I mean, they're a little skews right, but it's not like characterizing Joe Rogan as like extreme right, as some people who don't listen to his show have done. It's not really accurate, right? And that's also part of the problem with people jumping to conclusions about what his show is. Like a lot of people just haven't listened to it, right? Let me go through an example on Alex Jones' show.
mRNA vaccines go into your cells as a virus. They're viruses.
Okay, right there, that's incorrect. Okay, if you look up, is mRNA vaccine a live virus, you will find many reputable sources that talk about the mRNA being instructions to create proteins. It's not an actual virus itself. Yeah, that's a small statement, but it's false, and it goes unchallenged here because there's a lot happening right now, and we're not pausing every. Joe Rogan's not pausing every few seconds to talk about the truth of what Alex Jones is saying. He tries to fact check in real time. It's just really difficult to do because there's so much information coming at once.
So it's a virus they inject you with that reprograms your cell to then have a certain response to things and release proteins, which is what cancer does.
Okay. So now he compares it to cancer, but comparisons to cancer are purposeful. Like there's never like a good comparison to cancer. In just a short period of time, he's saying it's like a virus and it's replicating like a cancer.
And so they admit on the news that 100% of people that take these are getting sick, 20% are going to the hospital.
He said they admit on the news that 100% of people who are taking these mRNA vaccines are getting sick and 20% are going to the hospital. Now, immediately, you and I, and then you'll see here, Joe Rogan himself is incredulous about this because your own experience shows you that cannot be true because people who have taken vaccines and have not gotten sick.
They also have vaccines that are called behavior modification vaccines.
So he changes the subject immediately. So this is a ton of information to something that sounds like super scary, behavioral modification vaccines. Now, if you Google behavior modification vaccines, it's not behavior modification vaccines. There's a term called behavioral vaccines that are really not vaccines at all. They just talk about changing behaviors in order to prevent diseases like brushing your teeth or something, right? But the way he says behavioral modification vaccines in the context that he's speaking makes one think that there are vaccines that modify your behavior. He talked about this right after the mRNA vaccine that is a virus and replicates like cancer or maybe gives you cancer. There's so many competing strands of information that it's really hard to sort out in real time.
You can type it in.
Okay, but let me pause right there. mRNA vaccines, you said 100% of them get sick and 20% of them go to the hospital.
They had two studies. In one study, 100% got sick, 20% with the hospital. Another study, 80% got sick, and of those, 20% with the hospital. That's
These are
CBS
not true.
News.
CBS did not,
in,
news did not
Jamie's
say
gonna
that.
find that right now.
You can type in Bill Gates grilled over vaccine dangers. You'll have CBS News reporting it.
So that's not true. CBS News did not report that, not even close. Joe Rogan is trying to fact check this in real time, but it's, again, very difficult to do. They struggle in the next few minutes to figure out even like what to Google to disprove this like clearly ludicrous claim. Okay. Now, to his credit, Joe Rogan is trying to fact check this, right? And so why aren't we scoring this show higher for and giving credit to Joe Rogan for this? Like I said, the format of his show is friendly and respectful to his guests. Like just a couple of minutes before this exchange, Alex Jones was going off about how he researches this stuff 18 hours a day, and he's one of the best of people like of looking up stuff on the internet. Like he's the best internet researcher, I guess, out there. And he can't keep all the stuff straight in his head because it's like very confusing. But he knows he's seen it there before. And Alex or Joe Rogan will say, "Yeah, I like text you at 3 a.m, and you're like going over this stuff. Like you do this all the time, man." Again, being friendly, but that is that signal like imbues trust like that listeners have in Joe Rogan to Alex Jones because they're friendly. Like the other guest, your co-host guest Tim Dillon talks about effusively about how he's followed Alex Jones since before 9/11, and that this is like the greatest day of his life, and he's like so excited for him to be on there. And so the attitude is of respect. Like the things that Alex Jones says should be taken seriously without regard for the fact that he's saying demonstrably false things, many demonstrably false things that he continues to say in this interview, right? So we're not giving credit and credence to Joe Rogan trying to fact check because one, he can't. Two, he inadvertently gives credibility to Alex Jones by not being able to find things that dispute what he says in real time. We have an availability bias. We have a bias towards accepting what's in front of us if we don't have time to go and investigate something else that's not in front of us. And ultimately, he has a choice of who he has on his shows, right? Alex Jones has a reputation for spreading actual fake news, like that like Chobani Yogurt hired terrorists, or that the Sandy Hook parents were actors, and that never even really happened, right? I mean, these are like documented cases of that really damage Alex Jones' reputation, yet Joe Rogan chose to have him on his show. Joe Rogan put out a statement recently in the last few days saying that he doesn't mean to be misleading. He did talk again about just wanting to hear everybody's voice, everybody's opinion, hear them out. And he said that he doesn't really prepare very much for these shows, so he doesn't really know what folks are going to say beforehand. The bigger your platform, the bigger your responsibility is to make sure something is true beforehand. Think about like how people spread misinformation on Facebook. If it's just you and you see something that you're not sure is true, and then you just share it and say, gosh, that'd be terrible if it was true. Or you just share it and you ask, I wonder if it's true. You have a little bit of a platform. It's your friends are your platform. So you do have a bit of a responsibility to check before you share something that you don't know is true, especially if you suspect that it's not true, before you actually go and share it, right? Joe Rogan's platform is one of the biggest in the entire world. So it's, and people rely on it for information, whether he likes it or not, like news-like information about new things upon which they make decisions. So it's nice that he wants to hear everybody's opinion, but if he doesn't know whether stuff is true, and if he doesn't know, have the preparation or the capability to ensure that it's true in real time, or the capability to, this is not a live show. Like they put it on later and then they could take it down later if they find out it's not true. They don't do that, right? They just, they leave it up there. It's, if they don't know it's true, if it's true or not, why go on a 3-hour exploration, like throwing stuff out there to be like, we don't know if this is true. Take it for what it is when people have this availability bias. Okay. So hopefully this shows you that the Joe Rogan Show is not just one thing, but for now, it's not a very reliable source for news and news-like information. We will rate more episodes of Joe Rogan's podcast, and hopefully, given the things that he said, he will try to do differently in the future, that will get better in reliability in the future. So check back then.